Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Avinash, and in this video, I'm going to explain how we can use DMS service to migrate data from one database to another, one RDS cluster to another RDS cluster. So here, if you don't know how to launch an RDS cluster, so please refer to a video available in my YouTube channel to launch these RDS clusters. And when coming to the architectural point of view, so I have a VPC. Within that VPC, I have multiple private subnets, and I have launched my databases. If you observe the screen, I have a source database. So I already have a schema within the source database. I would like to migrate that entire schema to this target RDS instance. All right. So, you know, here, as my source and target both are MySQL DB engine, it's running with MySQL DB engine, right? So we can call this as a homogeneous migration. And also, both source and target both are running in same VPC. So I don't require any additional things to establish the connectivities. But if your source is in one VPC and your target in another VPC, you can use VPC peering connection. So then you can do the migration. Or if your source database is in on-premise and your target database, you want to migrate that source database to AWS environment, so you can use site-to-site VPN connectivity, or you can, if you have any hybrid connectivities like AWS Direct Connect, so you can directly migrate source to target. So if you are using your source is a different engines like IBM DB2 and all, and if you want to migrate that to AWS, so you can use a tool called a schema conversion tool. You can convert your source schema to one of the supported schema that are available in RDS. So, when coming to this lab architecture, I have a jump server to get connected to these databases. So this jump server is running in my custom VPC's public subnet. Here it is. This is my jump server. It's in public facing, right? So this is what my jump server. Within this jump server, I have installed my SQL Workbench. So as this jump server and my both the RDS clusters, source and target, as both are running in same VPC, so I really don't require any additional settings to establish the connectivities between these. So the resource within the VPC can communicate each other without any additional settings. All right, so we must take care about the security group of our RDS clusters. So that should communicate with our jump server. So that is the only thing we need to take care. So now to migrate data from the source DB to target DB, we are going to use a DMS cluster. So this DMS cluster will help us to get data from source and it migrate data to the target. All right. So for that, we first need to create this DMS cluster. And if you observe the source database, let me connect to the source. All right. I connected to the source database now. If we go to schemas, I already have a database with a name called classic models. I set this as a default. Give a right click, set as a default schema. So now whatever commands I'm going to give, it actually execute here. So this already have some tables. So we can use a command called show tables query. You see, these all are the tables. And even if you want to view any information we have inside the tables, I'm going to use a very simple query. Select the star from customers, or if you haven't made the schema as a default one, you can give classic models dot customers, then execute. So it is going to show you all the information. So this is all coming from the source database. I would like to migrate this specific database or multiple schemas, right? So I want to migrate it to the target. So for that, I have a target here and I got connected to this target. And if you observe, we don't have any schemas here. All right, it's just a system that defaultly, whenever you launch any RDS cluster, we will get that here. Now, this I have used it for testing purpose. I have dropped it, however. Right. So now let's use this DMS to migrate the data. So as I mentioned, first we need to launch a DMS cluster. Then we need to create endpoints. So one endpoint uh, to connect to source, one endpoint to connect to the target. So let's go to the DMS service, and in left pane, right, you have an option here called replication instances. Go to replication instances, click on create replication instance, give a name. Um, DMS is the name I'm giving, and what configuration you're looking for. I'm going with T3 micro. So you can even include to previous versions and you can get T2 micro also, DMS.T2 micro also. So I'm good to go with the T3 micro. And engine version, I'm going with latest version. Then multi-AZ, I'm not going to launch it for high availability purpose. We can launch it in multi-AZ, multiple clusters runs in backend in multiple availability zone. The cost is going to be double for that option. So storage, we are good to go with the 50 gigs. The database we have is very, very small. And I'm going to choose virtual private cloud VPC as our custom VPC and replication subnet group. I'm going with the default subnet group. Public access, if you want to get allocated with a public IP address, so you can. So we can, if this option is enabled, we can get connected to this DMS outside of our VPC also. So scroll down, click on create replication instance. If you want to set up any maintenance activities like a auto miner version upgrade, if you set this to yes, AWS automatically update whenever any minor version update comes. At what time you want to uh, do or at what time you want to perform such type of maintenance activities, you can set up that here. Click on create replication instance. Okay, so now the replication instance creation is started. 3.4.7 is the latest DMS version. So if you're using this 3.4.7 and if your environment is completely it's not an internet facing one, if you're not using any NAT gateway, NAT instance, we required some endpoints to establish connectivities. So you can see that here DMS to use VPC endpoints. Either we need to use public routes or we need to use VPC endpoints. So click on view endpoints. So then we can start creating these endpoints here from DMS console itself. Click on create endpoint. This is different endpoint. So I'm talking about a VPC endpoint. All right, here the replication instance creation is starting. So once this creation is completed, we can go and we can create endpoints. So to create this endpoint, we first required a source endpoint and target endpoint. And the source endpoint, it's like a connectivity between our DMS to the source database. And target endpoint is like a connectivity between this DMS cluster to this target instance. So let's click on create endpoint. Here is a source endpoint. So you can give endpoint identifier. So you can give any name I'm calling it as a source endpoint and source engine. I'm using MySQL here. Okay, so this is I'm giving my source DB information. So let's grab this endpoint name, right? What exactly it is here. So how you want to provide your database credentials? So if you are using secrets manager, you can give that secret ID. You can give how this can communicate with that systems manager, secrets manager. You can provide that IAM role. So I'm going to choose that provide access information manually. I'm giving the server name. So that is my source endpoint RDS endpoint name. So my source is running on port number 3306. My default username, I'm providing that here. And password, I'm giving password here. If you want to enable SSL, you can give verify CA and you can choose a certificate or verify full, right? Or you're good to go with the none also. So then scroll down, then click on create endpoint. So however, we can test this. So, but basically this DMS replication instance still is in creation, right? So I'm not going to do any testing. We will do this testing after that replication instance creation completes. It's still creating. So then go to endpoint and create the target endpoint. Click on create endpoint. So I'm selecting target endpoint. See, if you are using RTS DB instance, you do have an option to select here. So you can simply select and which one is a target, you select the target and it picks a target engine automatically, DB identifier as our name that whatever the cluster name we have given, that also pick this DB identifier. Well, same thing is going to pick up here. So this, it's an easy option. If you really don't want to go with the or if you want to provide the information manually, you can simply give that here. So I'm going with this target endpoint as the name and target engine is MySQL. I'm going to provide access information manually. So it picked it automatically target DB. 3306 is the port number, username is admin, password is Avinash1234. So then SSL, I'm going to set it to none. Scroll down, then click on create endpoint. All right, now a source endpoint created successfully, target endpoint created successfully. So we are waiting for this replication instance creation. So it's still happening. Once this DMS instance creation complete, we can go and test this. So for that testing, we can go to source endpoint, navigate to connections, click on test connection. So whatever the DMS instance available, we can pick it, then click on run test. So, it's not active. That's the reason it's not performing any testing. So, you know, this source should have connectivity with this DMS. Also, this target also should have connectivity with this DMS. So if both connection, if it's showing status as a success, then we are good to create our final step, like a database migration task. So with the help of that source and target endpoint, we are going to create this database migration task, right? So it's still creating, and whoever um, don't know how to launch an RDS cluster, so please go to YouTube. Just search for AWS Avinash Reddy and navigate to videos. So you can search for RDS. So here I made a video on how we can get connected to RDS from private subnet with the help of Bastion. You can refer this video. All right, we even have like a lot of tutorials on Azure administration, so feel free to go through those videos. So I try to compare these Azure with AWS. All right, so by this time, our DMS should be ready. All right, so you observe here, so DMS cluster creation is now completed. It's in available state. So let's go to the endpoints. Let's test the endpoint. Navigate to source endpoint, go to connections, click on test connection. So click on run test. Okay, so let's do the testing for target also. Both should be in successful state. So just run test. So it is testing. So we are running testing for source endpoint as well as target endpoint to our DMS replication instance. So this testing don't take much time. All right. So our target endpoint shown status as a successful, and also our source endpoint also successful. All right, so that means we are good with the endpoint. So both endpoints now able to connect with our DMS replication instance. Now navigate to database migration tasks. Click on create task. So give a name, like you can give any task. So migration test is the name I'm giving. What is a replication instance? I'm going to use this DMS replication instance we created, and we need to choose a source endpoint and target endpoint. So go and select source endpoint and select the target endpoint. So sometime back I mentioned that endpoints, right? So basically, if you are using completely private environments without any uh, internet gateways or NAT gateways, so you definitely require these endpoints. So, I'm going to choose migration type as migrate existing data. And if you want to migrate existing data and you want to replicate ongoing changes from source to target, you can choose a second option. And whenever you're using replicate data changes only, you can use a third option. All right. So if you're using this migrate existing data and replicate ongoing changes, so we need to enable bin log, binary log on our source database. All right. So we need to set up a retention period. So however, I'll go with this migrate existing data that doesn't require any binary log configuration. So task setting, I'm going with wizard. I'm going to drop tables on target and I'm going with limited LOB mode, or we can go with full LOB mode. So if you want to enable validation, once a migration is completed, you can enable turn on validation. And if you want to get all the task logs to CloudWatch logs, you can enable this and it is going to store all the logs into CloudWatch. So that really not required for now. Here, under selection rules, which schema you want to migrate. So you can select that schema here. Click on add new selection rule. So click here, enter a schema. So if you want to migrate everything from source to target, you can give this. So, but like, whenever you're selecting this percentile, it's a wildcard. So, as it is an AWS RTS, it has some system databases, right? So that definitely gave some errors. So what I'm going to give here, so I'm going to use this classic models. All right, I'm going to give source name as classic models. So whatever data we have under this classic models. So that is going to take from source and whatever table it is. I'm giving wildcard for table, not only a specific table. So I'm going to migrate all that. So then scroll down and when you want to start migrating, automatically once this DMS task creation completes. So click on create task. So now a database migration task is now creating and we are giving a full load. So this is a source endpoint and this is a target endpoint. This is a replication instance we are using to migrate data from source to target. So just you need to wait for a minute to this status it changes to running once the creation is completed. So just observe here, we don't have anything under this target now. It just only system schema, that's a default one. And once this migration task is started, so then we can verify even the progress. Okay, so the DMS task is in now ready state. So we are good to start the replication. If you want to do it manually, you go here, restart our resume. Right. So as we selected, start when it is ready. So it's starting. You can find the status here. And if you scroll down, it should show the progress. It's still starting. And whatever the tables, those all we can see here. What are the tables we have, whether it is load status, is it completed or not, everything it will show here. And it is still starting. It's in running state now. And here is the progress. So the progress 100% completed. Okay. So the DMS task. Right, so it migrated all the data from source to target. Let's go to this target RDS cluster, give a refresh. You see here, classic models is now schema appeared, and if you are expanding, so it is fetching the tables. So we can see all the data, what exactly data we have under this source, right? A schema called classic models that everything is going to be migrated here. And also we got another schema called AWS DMS control. So if any error occurs, validation things, right? Validation errors and all such type of information, or so the process, like how exactly it is happening, so that we can find here under AWS DMS control. So it is in running state, and now you can see the status, the load is completed. So you can go to table statistics, you can see it is completed, so no table errors. So if we go here and give a refresh, or else we can even give commands, right? Show tables. Okay, we haven't selected anything as a default. So let me set these classic models as a default. Then we can run, you see, we are able to see all the tables. And if you want to view any specific table, let me select start from customers, then execute it. You see, we were able to view all the required information here. So that means whatever the data we have under the source classic models, that now migrated to this target. All right, so the load is now completed. So later, if you want to give, if you want to resume the task, or if you want to restart the task, you can go here, you can choose restart or resume. So then you can do this activity. Right. So that is how exactly we can use database migration task, DMS service, to migrate some schemas from one source RDS to another target RDS. So I hope you found this video informative. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos on Amazon Web Services. Thanks for watching, guys.